Now, our children are all grown now. How many of you have got a couple of kids, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, something like that? Isn't it interesting how none of them are alike? You know what I'm talking about? I mean, you don't have 2, you go, oh, your 2 are just alike. You know, they're all different. It seems like no matter how many you have, they're different. They may have some similarities, but I've got 3, and they're 3 distinctly different kids. Now, we're good Southern people, so if you were to come over and hang out with us one evening, we'd probably go out back on our screened-in porch and sit there, and we'd get some sweetened tea. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And you know, lots of sugar and caffeine. We'll be up all night. You know what I'm saying? And you know, syrupy, it's good. That's a good Southern drink, right? And you know, when our kids were little, they were convinced that we had them so that they could wait on us. And they were partially right. And so had you come to visit us when our kids were little and we were going to have some sweet tea, it would have been very likely that we would have sent one of those kids or some of those kids after some tea. And as we had done that, we would have seen their little personalities manifested differently in the way they got the tea, wouldn't we? Our oldest child, Denise, very proper. Everything is supposed to be in its place. Details matter. When she was little, she could tell if the children, that's what she called them, the children had been in her room because the air had been moved. If Denise goes and gets our tea, there'll be 2.3 cubes in each glass. Each glass will be filled exactly the same because fairness matters. They will be placed exactly the same on the tray, and with way too much stress, this child will deliver the tea. You know what I'm talking about? You got one of those, right? Our second child, Rachel. Rachel, I mean, from the moment she's born, has been a party, looking for a place to happen. And if she was little, when our kids were growing up, they were little, y'all remember the old cartoon Beauty and the Beast, right? I mean, if Rachel goes and gets the tea, she's going to set the stereo speakers out, plug in Beauty and the Beast. She's this high, and she's going to come out going, be our guest, be our guest, be our guest. Right? My son Daniel has a wonderful, tender servant's heart. He's very concerned about other people. It's a wonderful character trait to have. And he would come out and take your personal order on how you wanted your tea. And then he would go back and take the time to prepare exactly what you wanted, and he would bring it out. And then he would have a little towel over his arm, serving you. That's his personality style. And see, if we want tea around our house with all this junk going on, we're probably going to have to send 2 or 3 of them because they're probably going to bump into each other, right? We're going to diversify our efforts so we end up with some tea at the end. You know what I'm saying? Diversify. Spread around. They told us in Investment Class 101, the very first finance class you take, don't put all your eggs in one basket. You ever heard that? Say yes. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. See, if you put all your eggs in one basket, problem is something could happen to that basket. That's a bad idea. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. Instead, spread your eggs around. Put a couple here, and let's buy a little bit of this kind of an investment here, and we're going to continue. You know, we don't want it all in one place. Something could happen to the one place, and we wouldn't want to have that happen. I mean, you know, there could be a disaster. There could be a hurricane, and if we have all of our eggs in one basket, oh, we could run into all kinds of problems. I mean, something could come along and cause problems. This is a regulation 16-pound shot put. Pretty serious. I mean, we could name this 911. We could name this Katrina. We could name it job layoff. We could name it, you invested all of your 401k in your company, and your company stock went to zero when your company went broke. So don't buy company stock in your 401k. It's putting all your eggs in one basket. And if you put all your eggs, oh, this is scaring me. Are you guys down there freaking out just a little bit? I mean, there may be a problem here. We may need to get like the plastic out. Are y'all ready? Because if you put all your eggs in one basket, I mean, you know, something could come along, couldn't it? Do we need to draw the suspense out more? I mean, it would be, you want to spread it out. See what diversification does? You see what diversification does? Diversification creates safety, and you're not going to have that happen. Oh! You got to be careful. You got to be careful. You can't bet the farm on one horse, can you? You don't want to spread it out. Because see, if I drop it on that one, or I drop it on that one, I got all the rest of these, and I'll be fine. Everything will be okay, won't it?
Jeff, are single stocks good investments?
Not particularly. You know, and there's really a couple reasons why. The stocks in of themselves are great, but part of the challenge is that if you are starting with a small amount of money, you can't buy too many different companies, individual stocks, so you have no diversification. So you take your $1,000 and buy one company, and that company doesn't do well, then you're not going to do well. Whereas you can put $1,000 in a mutual fund and instantaneously have thousands of different companies that you own. So it dramatically reduces your risk. And the second thing is these mutual fund managers have billions of dollars that they're managing, teams of hundreds of the smartest people in the world, computer systems that they can research everything. They know what the CEOs of these big companies are eating for breakfast. So they're going to know much, much better about what stock to buy and then when to sell it than you or I or anybody else would.
Jeff, can you explain what penny stocks are?
Yeah, penny stocks are just stocks that aren't worth very much, worth pennies or 10 cents or 15 cents, as opposed to most companies' stock is worth 10, 20, 30, 40, $50. So a small startup that goes public will have its shares valued at a very, very small amount. But that should really be a red flag because the theory is that you're going to be able to make this huge percentage because you're able to buy the stock for pennies. But there's a reason why it's only worth pennies.
Now, with virtually all investments, as the risk goes up, you should make a better return. So does the hopeful return. So if I'm going to take less risk, I'm usually going to make less on my money. Does that make sense? Yes. And so there's a spectrum of risk. As I take more risk, I'm going to make more money. I can put my money over here in a simple cookie jar. And I could do an investment in a cookie jar. Now, cookie jars have an interest rate of what? Zero. So I can put my money in here. I'm not going to make anything on it. But it'll pretty much be here. Unless the kids find it. But that's a zero risk, but a zero return. I could take a little bit more risk and put it in a savings account, and I'm going to make like, whoopee, 2% or something, right? But it's going to be there most of the time, as long as I can get the teller to figure out the account number, right? I mean, there's very little risk with FDIC insurance. I could take a little bit more risk and do a CD. I could take a little bit more risk and maybe do a mutual fund. I could maybe buy a single stock. That's even more risk, but I might make more return. I could go to Las Vegas. That'd be a little more risk. Or I could go completely off the risk spectrum and I could be a day trader and lose my tail end. Now, I don't recommend day trading or Vegas as your investment plan, but I also don't recommend cookie jars. Because there's two kinds of risk you've got to consider when you're thinking about investing. Now keep in mind, saving is for 5 years or less. Investing is for 5 years or more. I'm going to leave this alone long term. Now here's the situation. If I lose my money because I put it in a bad investment, that's a risk, the risk of losing my money. And when I say risk, that's what you think of, right? Say yes. Now, there's another kind of risk, though. If you're not making at least 6% on your money when you're investing at 5 years or more, you've got another problem. Inflation and taxes. Because, see, inflation runs for the last 70 years, according to the Consumer Price Index, the CPI, that has averaged about 4.2%. And so this $100, if it doesn't earn 4.2%, if it earns 4.2%, it'll just be worth what it was worth last year. It'll only buy what it would buy last year because it's worth 4.2% less in terms of purchasing power. That's what inflation is. Does that make sense? Say yes. Yes. Okay. So I've got to make 4.2% to break even with inflation, and to net, after I pay taxes on my money, making money, to net 4.2%, I've got to make 6%. So 6%, I pay taxes, I break even. So you've got to make 6% on your money to break even with taxes and inflation. And so you've got to move along this risk spectrum enough that you get up in above 6% to be making any real money above taxes and inflation. Does that make sense? Say yes. Yes. So in other words, if I stay back here, I'm not going to probably lose my money, but I'll get tackled from behind by inflation and taxes catching up with me and giving me a shoestring tackle just as I get to the finish line. And all of a sudden, I've got a big pile of money, but because it's been over a huge number of years, it really won't buy anything, and I'm not ready to go. So you've got to take those two kinds of risks into consideration. Also with investing, when discussing investments, liquidity means availability. When you hear someone say, I have a liquid investment, that just means they can get their money. It doesn't mean they bought water. And so, again, if you take more risk, you make more money. But the other thing is, if you're willing to tie your money up and you can't get to it, it's not available, it's not liquid, then you can make more money as well. So in other words, it's very liquid in the cookie jar, isn't it? But a crummy investment as a long-term investment. I'm not making anything on it. It's safe and it's liquid, but that doesn't give me what I want for a 5-year or longer investment. Same thing with a stupid savings account or a CD, a certificate of depression. I'm not really making anything on my money after taxes and inflation. So I've got to take a little more risk, and I've got to be willing to tie my money up a little longer. And if I go all the way over here, there's an investment a lot of you have made that is an excellent, excellent investment that is very, very illiquid. It's very hard to get your money out of quick and easy, but it's a great investment, and a lot of you have one. What is it? A house, real estate. Real estate's a great investment, but it's very hard to get your money out of. Your money's not available. It's not liquid. And if you don't believe me, try to sell a house fast. We have a word in real estate for houses that sell fast: cheap. You have to discount the price really deep to get it to move. Proof it's not liquid. Same thing with mutual funds and other things like that. You do not want to be in those things if you have to jump in and out, jump in and out, jump in and out. You want to be able to park your money for a while, and you want to take a little bit of risk. Not too much over to day trading, but we want to take a little bit of risk and be able to leave it alone a little while in order to be able to make more than that 6% and do well. As there is more liquidity, there's typically less return. So as the money's more available, just like as there's less risk, you're not going to make much on your money. So if you want your money available and safe, you're not going to make any money on your money. As a matter of fact, you're probably going to lose money after taxes and inflation. So you got to take a little bit of risk. When you bought a house, you didn't get a guarantee, but it was a good buy, right? Right? Okay. The house is no guarantee, so you took some risk. But it was an educated risk, because real estate has a good track record over many years of being a good investment. So you felt safe buying it. But you don't have a government guarantee against loss on your house, do you? Say no. No. So you took a risk, but it was a reasonable risk for a good investment, and you tied your money up.
How is a house an investment?
A house is an investment because as you're paying on the loan, the value of the home is growing. So the debt is decreasing and the value is increasing. So when you put yourself in a position to either where you're selling it or you've got it completely paid for, it continues to appreciate in value. So you're going to have money. You'll make money when you either sell it or you have it paid for. So it's something that is appreciating, and that's what I call an investment, something that is growing.
Now, types of investing. Let's look first at CDs, money market type accounts. A CD is a certificate of deposit, typically at the bank. Now I hear people walk around talking like there's somebody, there's some big investor. I've got me a CD. I've got CDs, I'm doing CDs. This means nothing. You know, when you ever go to school and have perfect attendance, they gave you a certificate. That's what this is. It's a certificate that says you have a deposit. Whooping. Okay? You have a savings account with a frameable certificate. That's it. That's all a certificate of deposit is. Now, that's not what a real one looks like. A real one would look more like a piece of paper from a bank, right? That's an actual certificate of deposit there. And these days, most of them are done electronically. You may not even get a piece of paper. You just have a web presence. It's a savings account that if you take your money out early, they charge you I don't own any CDs, not one. I'm not going to tie my money up and not get paid anything for tying it up. And that's what we end up doing with this. So I don't do that. Instead, I use money market accounts with a mutual fund company, money market mutual funds. They're low risk, money market accounts with check writing privileges. So for my emergency fund, I'm making the same money you'd be making on a CD, about the same interest rate as you'd make on a 6-month CD in a money market account, and I can write checks against it. There's no penalty, and it's just sitting there. It's not an investment, though. Even then, it's a savings account, because we said with the emergency fund, it's not an investment, it's insurance.
Jeff, what do smart and wealthy people invest their money in?
What we've found is that smart people invest in themselves. A lot of them tend to invest in a business that they're working with, which is really smart. And then they all invest in sound long-term mutual funds and long-term investments. And so what we have historically found is that the really wealthy people started with small means but invested systematically and regularly over a long time in good investments like mutual funds that have had long-term track records.
So common millionaires, they don't just become a millionaire overnight because they put a video on YouTube. It's really that they are steady with their investments.
The really fascinating and odd thing is it's not that hard. If you take a person that starts at 18 or 19, 20, 21 years old and invest regularly over their lifetime, every one of them could be a millionaire. You don't have to earn this amazing rate of return. You just have to be consistent and start early.
So what are some common traits that you see among millionaires?
They tend to work hard, and they tend to live on less than they make, and they tend to be really, really disciplined about saving and investing. And then you can spend the rest of your money, but pay yourself first and invest that money.
Single stocks. Single stock investing carries an extremely high degree of risk. I do not own a single stock. If you're a single stock nut, or you just think your company is the best company since sliced bread and you want to buy some single stocks, you've just got to have some single stocks. You think they're the greatest thing out there and you and your golfing buddy have got this figured out and you just got to do it. Well, no more than 10% of your nest egg. So if you have $300,000 in your 401k, you should never have more than $30,000 tied up in single stocks. And I got to tell you one more time, I know a lot about this. I've spent my life studying it. I have zero money in single stocks. I don't think it's fun. It's too risky. And you jump in and out, and there's all kinds of studies that say that the average person buying and selling stocks through their broker over a period of years averages about 7%. You and your golfing buddy do not have this thing figured out. And so it's a bad idea. Mark Twain, he said it this way. He said, October, this is one of the peculiarly dangerous months to speculate in stocks. The others are July, January, September, April, November, May, March, June, December, August, and February. This is how it works. You're listening to the Dave Ramsey Show, America. Thank you for joining us. Coming up next is Monty. He's a junior in college, 22 years old, Pensacola, Florida. Hey, Monty, what's up in your world?
Yeah, not a lot. I have an uncle who does day trading, and he says it's making him rich. Why don't you recommend day trading or single stocks? Because they seem to work for him.
How do I say this gently, Monty? Your uncle is an idiot? Yeah, that's one thing we could say. Here's the deal. 78% of the people who buy and sell single stocks in a given year lose money. People who say they make money day trading are either can't add and don't keep up with their stuff, or they're like, it's like a fishing story. That's what it's like. Every time he goes fishing, he catches big fish. I've never seen any guys like my uncle. He's the best fisherman ever. Well, no, not really. But here's the deal. 78% of these people lose money. So the chances of him actually being the one genius, give me a break. If he was that blame smart, he'd be running a mutual fund. I can tell you this. I've got all these degrees, letters, and licenses and crap after my name that says I'm supposed to know something about stocks, and I do know a lot about stocks and buying and selling stocks. And you know how much I buy and sell single stocks? Zero. I'm a multimillionaire. You know why? Because I don't take chances like that. I don't play with those kinds of things. That's too much risk. Dude, you have a better shot of standing at the roulette wheel and just the law of random numbers making you rich than you do buying and selling single stocks. So best way to do is to find a way to get rich that is steady, predictable, low risk, and do that kind of a thing like long-term investing in good growth stock mutual funds. Hope that was clear for you, sir. We appreciate you joining us on the Dave Ramsey Show.